We know that many of the Europeans who came here were trying to avoid the autocracy of the old country, and so they purposely drew up some words like the Mayflower Compact, saying, we will make our decisions as a town. But face it, it was the men who made most of the decisions. Probably there was more equality of women among the Native Americans here by far than among the Europeans. The hand that rocked the cradle might rule the world in one sense, but whereas the Iroquois war chiefs were chosen by the women, were elected by the women, because the women were head of the families among the Iroquois, or Haudenosaunee, which is the real name of the Iroquois. The males ran European America, except in pioneer conditions where things were so hard that you couldn't keep up with. Did you ever stop to think of it? But the Tugboat Annie syndrome is really true. There's all sorts of times in American life when a man has died and his wife has stepped right into his powerful shoes. Like Ma Ferguson was governor of Texas. I was a folklorist in a wonderful woman in Adirondack. She said her mother ran a sawmill. I said, really? Yes. She says, when my father died, my mother just took over and ran it the rest of her life. It was her boast that the only thing I need a man for, I can pay him to do. I shouldn't oversimplify things. New England had some traditions which were quite different from New York State. I guess you know the Dutch handed out millions of acres, on paper that is, to different families. And come to think of that, leads to a nice song. This was a song sung right around this part of the world, approximately 143 years ago. 1844. Ever hear the down rent wars? Well, the 1840s were a wonderful period of American history. We had a succession of rather stupid presidents. You had Martin Van Buren and Tyler and Harrison and Polk and Pierce and Buchanan. None of them were willing to face up to the contradictions that America was facing, the contradictions of slavery, the contradictions of lack of suffrage, and so on, a whole lot of things. But America was just seething with all sorts of things. The suffrage movement for women's rights, the anti-abolitionist movement, and in Rhode Island they had the Dorr Rebellion. Anybody from Rhode Island here? Nobody from Rhode Island? Well, they had 2 governors elected, and there was a bloody civil war was about to break out when Thomas Dorr says, wait a minute, let's not shed blood, and he backed down. But he should have been the person who was governor, because he was elected by the people, whereas his opponent was elected by the people with land. And the question is, did you have to have land in order to vote? Here in the Hudson Valley, Stephen Van Rensselaer III had 2 million acres of land, and 60,000 tenant farmers, mostly in Columbia County, had to bow down to him like a feudal lord when they saw him, and give him so many days' labor per year. The farmers formed an illegal organization called the Calico Indians. They harked back to the Boston Tea Party, would meet at night to the sound of a tin horn. The tin horns were what the women used to call the men in from the field, big things about 3 or 4 feet long. But they said, no, don't blow it for the fields. When you hear the tin horn, it means a meeting. And they paint their faces like Indians, like they did at the Boston Tea Party, so no one could recognize them. And if the sheriff came to evict some farmer for not paying his rents, they would capture him at gunpoint and burn his writ of eviction. One of the most hated high sheriffs was Big Bill Snyder. As a matter of fact, when the Clearwater first sung in the little town of Castleton, I sung this song, and a man came up and shook my hand and said, my great-grandfather shot Big Bill Snyder. The moon was shining silver bright. The sheriff came in the dead of night. High on a hill an Indian stood, and the tin horn sounded through the wood. Get out the way, Big Bill Snyder will tar your coat and feather your hide, sir. Get out the way, Big Bill Snyder will tar your coat and feather your hide, sir. Get out the way, Big Bill Snyder. We'll tar your coat and feather your hide, sir. I'm sorry we didn't get this song in the book. Get out the way, Big Bill Snyder. We'll tar your coat and feather your hide, sir. Get out the way, Big Bill Snyder. We'll get out the coat and feather your hide, sir. Bill thought he heard the sound of a gun. He said, oh me, my race is run. Better had I never been born than to come within the sound of that tin horn. Get out the way, Big Bill Snyder. We'll tar your coat, feather your hide, sir. Get out the way, Big Bill Snyder. We'll tar your coat and feather your hide, sir. Next day the body of Bill was found. His writs were scattered on the ground. By his side a jug of rum told how he to his end had come. Get out the way, Big Bill Snyder. We'll tar your coat and feather your hide. Get out the way, Big Bill Snyder. We'll tar your coat and feather your hide, sir. After a couple years, there were 300 or 400 farmers in jail in various county prisons, and the leaders, one of the leaders was a dentist from the town of Hudson. They were charged with murder. But because they put up a struggle, they got some publicity. And you know the rule. What is the rule? The price of liberty is eternal publicity. Right? It doesn't always work. Didn't work with Indians who were fighting for their land. Didn't work for Nat Turner or Gabriel or a whole lot of other slave revolts. But it's in general not a bad principle to keep in mind.